Hey, Gina. I did have a presentation, but now after Milka had done such a great job in walking through all of those services and resources, and I'm also very excited to hear a lot about these initiatives because I could definitely see how that will benefit the work that we're doing in the Career Center. I wanted to start though, talking about some of the challenges that we see when we meet with alumni, because we also do work directly with alumni as well. Students do come back to the college and they're in need of assistance. They are, finding it challenging out in the workforce. They feel like maybe they didn't get a chance to do an internship or they didn't have enough work experience. And so we do extend those services to all alum. Alumni have access to the online job and internship system Handshake. They also can meet with us one-on-one. And I think that the first step to combating a lot of those challenges starts with just building up their confidence and letting them sort of learn about the things that they really are capable of and what they really have gotten through their degrees and really seeing how that could be applied in various applications throughout the workforce in different industries and fields. And that's sometimes really the first step is building up their self-efficacy and really understanding that, they really do have a lot of potential. And then, of course, helping them, coaching them rather through all of those steps of the application. And we work very closely with them to make sure that they are kind of updating their resumes, enhancing their interview skills and so forth. But on the other side of that, we also certainly work closely with alumni for our programming. For example, at our career fairs, there really are a large number of Hunter students that are in recruitment and human resources, and many of them are on the other side of the table. And they always come back because they know how amazing our students are. And this is true from all of the employers' perspectives. They come to Hunter, they do an event, and they speak with our students, and they are always so enthusiastic because of the kind of mentality from, just number one, the skill set that our students have, but also the just the grit and the willingness to step up and really take charge and take on responsibility. So it's really wonderful when and our career fairs coming up, our in-person career fairs on April 16th. We welcome you all to come in and check it out, of course. And of course, encourage your students to attend. It's all different fields, a lot of different businesses will be there. A lot of energy. And in any event, a lot of those reps certainly are alum. But I think the strongest, and we also do have alum on our panels and programs, and in fact, just this past week, Eisner, which is Eisner Amper is a major accounting firm. They did a presentation to students in our center, and one of the presenters was a recent graduate of Hunter from our accounting program. And, it was, great to hear directly from the source of all of the, wonderful things that he's doing and how busy he is because he's working those wild hours during the accounting busy season. And really one really strong program that we have is in the working with our accounting students through a program called GPAS, or the Gateway to Professional Accounting Success, where we work closely with the economics accounting program, and they identify students that would be a really good fit for major accounting firms, and we work with them very closely over the summertime to really give them that professional development. And we invite our alum of that program back for discussion panels and also to promote the program. We're doing a program in April with the Accounting Society, including a panel of alumni that that our team puts together and so forth. So it's sort of, we could tell students until we're blue in the face about all the things they should be doing, need to do, what it's like, but it's not, it coming from an alum who really gets it, who knows what it's like, who knows, the professors and what other students have been through. It's just that kind of guidance is golden. So that's what I have to share.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. We're so thankful for you all. And Kenny. Oh, you're muted.
Yes, I realized I was muted. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I work closely with Keith in Career Services, so it's always a pleasure to collaborate with Keith on events. And of course, Gina, I work closely. Gina is phenomenal. First of all, we wouldn't have an issue engaging alumni if everybody taught like Gina, because I think that's the first thing is customer service. we have to realize that our students are looking for a return on their investment. And why would you want to re-engage with a product that maybe didn't provide you with the service you were looking for? And our product is education. So I think that's the first thing we always have to keep in mind, that we're kind of edupreneurs, and we also have to be properly edutainers and make sure when we teach it's engaging, and when we serve, like I always have this thing, like I don't work for you, I work with you, but my job is to empower and inspire you. So that's really vital to making sure we engage the current students, so when they become an alumni, we won't lose connections with them. But there's like, and first, let me just say, working in a school of education or a professional school, you have some built-in advantages. I put a PowerPoint, like everybody's going sans PowerPoint, but I shared my PowerPoint in the chat. So if you want to check it out, because there are also things that I think can be replicated by other schools within the Hunter ecosystem. But being in the school of education and a professional school, we many of our students or alumni are adjuncts. There are cooperating teachers. They host our students. So that's already sort of built in when students graduate. Like they're always looking to host students because a lot of times alumni hosted them. So we kind of have a built-in alumni network. One of the other things that I do that's kind of stealthy, when students come to meet with me in career services, one of the biggest things we utilize is LinkedIn. I always tell students LinkedIn is Facebook for networking and for employment. So one of the ways I see that they did a really great LinkedIn page, and I give them a resource to help them with their LinkedIn page, is, of course, reach out to me. And once you complete your LinkedIn page, connect with me. So we have over 500 LinkedIn connections with the School of Ed. And a lot of that comes from just, hey, we helped you with your resume. Let's see how well you did your LinkedIn page. So, link in with me. So even like faculty, that might be something really good to do, is just like, hey, LinkedIn, connect with me via LinkedIn, and let's and give them an article or something to help them with their LinkedIn pages. So, and also, we realize that other forms of social media. So career services within the School of Ed is active on X, active on Instagram, and we have a lot of students who engage with us through those means. And then one of the other things we do is we put the onus on employers. So a lot of times, and I'm sure you all experience this, employers send you emails year after year and say, oh, can you share this with your students? So we've taken the initiative to say, hey, the best way to engage our students is to let us know how many alumni you've hired over these years when you send us these emails to say, hey, share this with your students. So a few schools took us up on that, and they did alumni profiles on some of our students. So it's in the PowerPoint, and you could see that. So again, it doesn't have to be driven by you. It could just be you as the facilitator. But I just really want to say how vital it is to infuse career and professional readiness into the content that you do or in the conversations that you have with our students. So when they graduate, and also the spirit of paying it forward. I'm proud to say I'm a Hunter alum. I did my master's here in the School of Urban Affairs and Planning, but also just being from a historically underrepresented group. Now, Hunter, that could go two ways, because men are historically underrepresented because Hunter started out as a women's college. But just being a Black man here at Hunter, a lot of times I've connected with, I connect with all students, but in particular, because I know a lot of students from underrepresented groups don't feel a sense of belonging, I make sure to go that extra mile to connect with students like that. So I've connected with alums in the School of Arts, the art school, like psychology and just other majors, just because I know they need that extra person to say, hey, I'm here for you. I just had one of them, Evan Johnson, he just did a panel a couple of weeks ago for, I want to say, psychology or just some other major. So that's important as well. And it doesn't have to be me just being a Black person. It's just could be you just being as somebody who's been where they hope to go and just really seeing that a student needs help, because I have just as many white students, just across the board who reach out and say, hey, I want to pay back, for the way Hunter provided me with service and stuff. One of the things that breaks my heart sometimes when I see students who haven't been engaged that way, and when you reach out to them, they're already seniors and they're just like, nah, nobody really reached out to me, for 3 or 4 years, so it's too late. And so we don't want that to be the message, especially in this day and age when people are questioning the value of a college degree. So we, like I said, it's the right thing to do, but it's also, the right thing to do if we want to, keep income and keep jobs.
Thank you so much, Kenny. So good. I really want to shout out to Kenny too, because Kenny is the one that keeps us all really active and engaged with our alumni. I know I run a program, and Kenny was like, connect with your alumni. And so we created a private Facebook page for our program. It's pretty popular. We have 250 students and alumni on that page, which is so exciting. And they really do, we have students posting jobs, and then other students get jobs from those students. We post the career services opportunities. We post other professional development opportunities for them. So people are super engaged on that page. And I know our younger alumni might not use Facebook that often, but they're like, I just use Facebook for this, right? And we're like, okay, we'll take it, right? But it's so nice to see those connections, and there are connections all over Hunter, and our students get jobs from our former students. So that's always so exciting. So if you're a smaller program, I highly, or even the libraries, I highly recommend just making those private Facebook groups, right? And you tell your students they can always join, and they want to feel a sense of connection to Hunter. And that's so important. So again, just a really little suggestion. It doesn't take me so much time to manage. And I know my students benefit from it, and anything my students benefit from, I want to do.
Can I just
Thank you,
always
Kenny.
say, can I say one last
Yeah.
quick?
Oh gosh, you could say a lot of things.
One of the things that I always tell students, especially alumni, capital comes in many forms. So a lot of times people look for you to contribute financial capital, but social capital is just as important, and sometimes it can lead to financial capital. So just tell students whatever they can pay forward in whatever ways is really welcome and accepted. And I know a lot of times alumni offices, not Hunter per se, but sometimes they always hit people with, oh, can you give back money? But time and capital and networking can also be just as valuable and leveraged.
I love that students see that, they see the importance of the network at Hunter, and that's so good. Amazing. So Phil, we're so excited to see what the libraries has done in terms of archives for alum.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a PowerPoint. Before I start, so while I'm still on camera, I want to tell people not everybody knows that the archives has actually moved. So if you're looking for us where we were on the second floor, we're now on the fourth floor of the library. So we moved up here, I think, last April. But we are settled in, and we are open for business. So but come join us. So let me do this share screen transition here. Get this going. Okay, so hopefully you can see, you see the slides, I'm assuming, right? All right, so what we're going to do now is go over the idea of alumni of Hunter Pass, so to speak. So I want to show you some illustrations to make things interesting, and if you have any questions at the end, definitely there'll be time for that. So the Alumni Association is a big part of the collection of the archives. And interestingly, they began collecting documents in 1872. So only 2 years after the school started, people were already thinking ahead to collecting the papers and collecting the materials that were coming from the founding of the college. So we have a really strong history of the college, thanks to the people who came before us. The papers of the Alumni Association stayed in the collection of the Alumni Association until 1974, interestingly, when they gave them to the college, about 100 years afterwards. But until that point, they had the records themselves. Gave it to the college in 74, and then the college gave it to the archives in 1983. So we've had these materials since 1983. There are 60 cubic feet of materials, or linear feet of materials. So the idea is we have 26 shelves worth of materials in the Alumni Association. So if you or your students or alums for that matter have any interest in researching the school, the history of the school, and fellow alums, there's a lot of materials for them to look at. It includes things like minutes of meetings and bylaws, but fun things like scrapbooks and photos, ephemera, like medals and ribbons and things along those lines. And also, there is a Hunter College Hall of Fame, which not everybody knows about. And so we do have records on all the alums who were nominated to be in the Hall of Fame. To give you an example of sort of materials you can see in this collection, this is an interesting example. This is during World War I. The Hunter College Student Council started a Hunter College ambulance fund. And the idea was they would raise money to buy an ambulance to send over to the front in France. And so on their own initiative, everybody was supposed to do their bit, quote unquote. And so they're wearing Red Cross tags and selling tickets to performances and dances, selling candy and flowers, but raising money. And they did manage to buy an ambulance. So there was an ambulance that came from Hunter College. You know, I don't know if you know, Ernest Hemingway was an ambulance driver during World War I. So maybe he drove our ambulance, you know, we can wonder. But again, this is sort of things that are kind of evocative of earlier eras of Hunter. Another thing which I try to emphasize with students who come to the archives is that we started out as the normal college. And sometimes they laugh at that as a name, but the idea of the normal college is that it was training teachers. And one of the things a lot of people, even at Hunter, don't know is that early on in the normal college, in order to be a certified teacher in New York City, the city required you had to go to Hunter College. So we kind of had a monopoly on teachers in the public school system in New York at the time. And this is an example here, if you can make out the slide. It's a photograph. There was a free kindergarten movement. And to any of you have any background in the history of education, kindergarten was a new idea at the time, around the 1880s, around the turn of the 20th century. And the idea of getting kids, and especially underprivileged kids, an education and kind of their version of Head Start. So these are materials that the Alumni Association was raising money for, and they had an alumni-sponsored free kindergarten for kids in the neighborhood. The other thing which I mentioned to the students a lot is that where we are in the Upper East Side was not a wealthy area in the 19th century. So there was a lot of poverty nearby. And the early students at Hunter would go out into the community and assess the needs of especially children in the community, which again, there's a lot of research that can be done on that, which is fascinating. We also have scrapbooks from the Alumni Association. And so again, these are earlier ones. I love the one on the left, my college days. So, and again, also emphasizing, which has been said, that the Hunter was a women's college up until the early 60s. So a really tremendous record in terms of educating women, especially women in New York City. You can see in the middle, the scrapbook that opened it up there has photographs of different theater productions at the time. So again, if students are interested in theater history or the art galleries or the arts at Hunter, we have a lot of photo documentation of that time. And on the right-hand side, there's different, I mentioned ephemera earlier. These are different keepsakes that are in the Alumni Association. So we have medals, we have ribbons, we have little silk purses with mementos and commemorative medals and that sort of thing, and coins. So again, even if we don't want to look at material culture and they don't want to just look at letters and papers and that sort of thing, there's a lot of that. One of the things I show students, we actually have a graduation dress worn in the 1870s in a box. So we had this dress passed down. We, in the archives itself, in the reading room, we have a basketball uniform from the 1920s, and it's kind of the bloomers and kind of the Gibson girl, sort of a blouse with a kerchief, and I show students, and they're curious about it because we also have a photograph of the varsity basketball team with this outfit on. But I said, I mean, you can still work out in this, right? I mean, it's not modern athletic equipment, but when you think about women in skirts and dresses, you know, you could run around in this and play baseball or play basketball or whatever the case may be. Now, in terms of individual alums, we do have papers for different prominent alumni through the years, and I'm not going to go through this entire list, but just to mention a few. One is Kate Simon, who is a very well-known travel writer and published several travel books over the years. Another along the lines of writing is Mary Alice Ayers, who was a short story author who published in the Paris Review and publications at that level. One of my personal favorites is Margaret Grant Plum, who was a librarian at Hunter from 1916 to 1960. So she really spanned a huge amount of time, and really not only the history of the library, but the history of the college. I mean, basically from World War I to Vietnam, that entire era, you know, she was the librarian at Hunter's, which is pretty incredible. Towards the bottom of the list is papers we recently acquired from Rosalind Willett, and we're processing these papers as we speak. And she's fascinating because she was a dietitian and became the first managing editor at McGraw-Hill, who's a woman. And she then started her own publicity company, Willits and Associates. Again, as a female entrepreneur, and this was late 50s, early 60s. And later on, she became a women's rights activist and lobbied Congress for more paid leave for women who had children. So really interesting materials. There's a lot of it. We've got a tremendous amount to go through, but we're working on that currently. And then another prominent alums whose paper we're working on right now is Gertrude Allian. And some of you might have seen this in the Hunter News. This would have been last year. Gertrude Allian was a biochemist and a graduate of Hunter who won the Nobel Prize. So we received her papers from her nephew, who's the man in the blazer there. And amongst everything else, we also received her actual Nobel Prize medal, which we do not have in the archives, but that is, the college does have that. And besides her papers, it's interesting there, next to Jennifer Robb, there's a blue dress. We even have, that was the dress she wore when she received her Nobel Prize, and there's photographs of her getting the prize in Sweden. So that is the dress. So, but we're working on those papers, and those should be available soon. But again, a very prominent alum in the sciences, obviously. Another thing to consider are the yearbooks we have in our collection. We have the Echo. The Echo is the original yearbook at Hunter. That goes back to 1896 to 1901. And then the Wisterian replaced it in 1902, and that is we have up to 2022, only because we haven't gotten the 2023 yet. But this is probably the most common resource asked for by alumni. It could be, you know, people who actually went here, or it could be my grandmother went to the school, my mother went to the school. And so that is a very common way to answer questions about what clubs were they in, or do you have a photograph of the person. Also, the college administration uses this a lot for development purposes. We have a lot of requests for people's names. One thing just to keep in mind, which I mentioned to Julie yesterday, if you are interested in, or you send people our way, oftentimes the women, we need their maiden names because especially back years ago, women had a different name before they were married when they went to Hunter. So if you do have a name of someone, if you can just make sure that it's their name that they had when they were here and not later when they got married, which makes things a lot easier. We do have hard copies in the archives of every archives or every yearbook, multiple copies in many cases. So it is a resource that people can come in and look at it themselves. In the meantime, we do want to make copies available online. Right now, there are digital copies available. We have a Flickr account. So if you go to the archives page and you click on Hunter College Pictures on Flickr, There's a link on the archives homepage where you can take a look at your books under albums. Now, Flickr, it still exists, obviously. It's a little dated in terms of the technology, and people went to a lot of work to scan these things into Flickr, which we appreciate. But we're updating things. We currently have work study students working on scanning the yearbooks. And then we'll put them on, there's something called JSTOR Forum, which we'll be using, which is a platform through JSTOR, the JSTOR that you know of through the databases. It will make these a lot easier to read. And so that's an ongoing process that we're going to put online. And we are, generally speaking, we are working on digitizing more and more of our resources, including student newspapers, which there's a driver coming by today, actually, I'm going to give the microfiche to, and we'll have old student newspapers available digitally in the near future. So that is coming, and that is a big drive that we're doing to make things accessible to alums. Again, if they're in Palm Beach or they're out of state, that they can access these things wherever they're living. Another thing to consider, we do have materials for college student clubs, organizations, and things along those lines. You can see the date ranged at 1871 to 2016, so a huge amount of time. Another very large collection, about 47 feet of shelving taken up with this. The majority of it is taken up by the Hunter College Student Government Association, which existed from 1928 to 1962 in terms of the papers that we have. So a really good insight into student concerns over the years, and in organizing whatever way that they did for what they found compelling in their particular time here at Hunter. And then we also have materials for the Hunter College Day Session Student Government from 1971 and 1993. And then the rest of the collection is primarily different student publications. And that's something, well, I'll pause here while we're on this. You know, we definitely would be interested in any current clubs that students have and their publications and their materials. You can see we have this about up to 2016, but we want things from 2024 as well. So any student clubs or organizations, and I had a student who shyly said, well, I'm in an ultimate Frisbee club, would that be okay? And I said, sure, of course, right? You know, so, you know, whatever the club is, we're open to any clubs that are interested in giving us their papers. That'd be fantastic. One example from this, which I have this slide here, there was a Hunter choral group called Sing, and they were around from 1917 to 1960. So again, a very long period of time. And so we have all the programs, and this might be of interest to students interested in the arts or with vocal music. The programs, they did travel a lot. They were at Carnegie Hall and you know, all around the city, and even traveled across the country. So unfortunately, it no longer exists, at least in this context, but a really good snapshot of a student group over a long period of time. Other collections that might be of interest to a lot of you or to our alums, we do have the records for the Hunter College Elementary School. Those run from 1870 to 1997. They're not as extensive as that might imply, but we do have things from the early years, and then odds and ends going up to 97, and also records for the high school. So it's not just the college records. We also have things for the elementary school and the high school. I mentioned the normal college. This is a really fascinating collection that I use a lot when I'm bringing students through the archives. So this is the beginning of Hunter College. And I'll show you the next slide. I'll show you some examples of the materials we have, but really detailed snapshot of how the college got started, Thomas Hunter's role in that, and all the ways that we got started as a school. We also have records for the professional schools. So we have the records of the School of Nursing from 1945 to 1973, and School of Social Work from 56 to 2008. So we do have, you know, outside of the main campus, we do things from the different campuses around the city. And then finally, we have the Hunter College Publications Collection. Again, 1870 to 2015, so it's very extensive. And as I put here, that includes commencement addresses, college catalogs. It's interesting, we do have a full range of the college catalogs that were published. We used to get questions about that a lot. Alums would get a job, and they had to show that they'd taken a chemistry course, and if they'd taken it in 1983, they had to have evidence of what the course covered. That doesn't happen quite as much anymore because most of it's online at this point, so it's not used as heavily as it was. But we do have them, and again, if anybody's interested in your department and the kind of courses that were taught over time, that might be interesting to take a look at. Let me show you an example in the final slide. So this is an example of what we have in the normal school collection. And on the left-hand side, this is a very popular photograph. If you look kind of the second row from the top, there's an African-American student there. And so this is 1884. And one of the things we emphasize when students look at the yearbooks, they look at photos of the early school, was that very early on, Hunter was completely integrated. There was no requirements in terms of race or religion or any kind of background. It was open to women who could pass the exam. So it's a really inspiring story for a lot of students. And when I show students who come to the archives this photo, it's touching because a lot of them pull out their cell phones and they want to take a picture of it themselves and have a record of this. And on the right-hand side is an example of something I think is a really great resource. This is a ledger. We have a lot of very enormous books that were ledgers for all the first students who came to Hunter. And then this is a page from the very first class at Hunter College. And what's interesting in terms of historical research is not just the names of the students, we also have their grades and what they took, but also it lists their addresses. It also lists the profession of their parents, which generally tends to be their fathers. So it's a really good socioeconomic way of looking at not only the students, but what their parents were doing, where they lived in the city. And so I think, it's probably could be applicable to a lot of different programs in the school if they want to take a look at primary sources. So that is my 15 minutes. I will stop sharing. And I'll hand it back over to Gina for questions.
Thank you so much. This is now my new obsession. I don't know if anyone else, they're like, oh my gosh, right? Like my mom went to Hunter, so now I want to see what's there. This is my obsession. This is so awesome. Amazing.